Welcome back to the deep dive. We have got a stack of research on the desk today that is, frankly, it's a little bit intimidating.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of those topics that feels like it belongs in a movie theater with a bucket of popcorn, watching some big sci-fi
Yeah,
blockbuster.
right.
But the reality is, it is happening right outside our windows. It's happening in our pockets. It's happening in the places where we all work.
It really is. I mean, we were talking about the changing nature of work itself. We are diving into automation, artificial intelligence, and, well, what happens to us when we build machines that are smart enough to do basically everything.
Yeah, it's a heavy topic. It sits right at that intersection of technology, economics, and honestly, just pure philosophy. It forces you to look in the mirror and ask, what are we actually for?
Exactly.
If we aren't workers, what are we?
It challenges the fundamental structure of how we've organized society for, the last few hundred years.
So before we get into the scary charts and the robots that can do backflips and all that stuff, I want to take us back in time.
Okay, let's do it.
I want to set the stage with a story that I think perfectly captures the tension we are going to be wrestling with for the rest of this deep dive. It's a classic anecdote involving the economist Milton Friedman.
Ah, yes. The canal story. This is the absolute best place to start.
Yeah.
It frames the entire argument so well.
So let's set the scene for you listening. It is the 1960s. Milton Friedman is one of the most famous economists in the world at this point.
A total heavyweight.
Right. And he is visiting a developing Asian nation. The specific country often varies depending on who tells the story, but the core of it remains exactly the same. He is being treated like a dignitary.
Getting the grand tour.
Getting the grand tour of a massive public works project.
Right, they're building a canal. This is huge, massive infrastructure. It's meant to totally modernize the region.
So Friedman arrives at the construction site. It's hot, it's dusty, and he's expecting to see the absolute pinnacle of modern engineering.
Sure, you'd expect to see massive bulldozers, cranes, earth movers, all the heavy machinery that basically defined the 20th century.
But when he looks out over the site, he sees something completely different.
He sees people.
Yeah.
Thousands of them.
Thousands of workers. And they aren't operating machines. They're literally holding shovels. They are digging this massive canal by hand, moving dirt one single shovel load at a time.
Which is just the definition of inefficiency.
Right. So Friedman is understandably confused. He turns to the government official who is hosting him and asks, essentially, what is going on here?
Yeah.
Why aren't you using modern earth-moving equipment? You could finish this entire canal in a month with a few bulldozers, but doing it this way is going to take years.
And the official looks at him like he is the one who just doesn't understand economics.
Exactly. The official smiles and says, oh, Mr. Friedman, you don't understand. This isn't just a canal project. This is a jobs program.
Right.
If we brought in bulldozers, we would have to fire all these men. We need to keep them employed.
And this is where Friedman delivers one of the most biting, sarcastic, and just brilliant retorts in the history of economics.
He pauses, looks at the official, looks at the men with the shovels, and says, oh, I see. I thought you were trying to build a canal. If it's jobs you want, why not take away their shovels and give them spoons?
It is devastating. But it illustrates a paradox that we used to find funny. I mean, we used to laugh at the idea of enforcing inefficiency just to keep people busy.
Because the logic was obvious, right?
Right. Technology, like the bulldozer, is inherently good. It frees human beings from drudgery. It allows us to do way more with way less effort. Why would anyone want to dig a ditch with a spoon?
But here is the pivot. Here is why we are actually starting with this story today. That anecdote feels almost nostalgic now.
Yeah, it really does.
Because today, looking at the research we have in front of us, we aren't talking about giving people spoons. We're facing the exact opposite reality.
We're building machines and software that don't just help the worker dig the hole faster.
Right.
They don't need the worker to hold the shovel at all. They don't need the worker to drive the bulldozer. They don't even need the worker to supervise the site anymore.
That is the massive shift. We are moving from a world where machines were tools that made humans more productive to a world where machines are replacements that make humans entirely obsolete.
And that is the core tension for you to keep in mind today. For the first time in human history, we are facing technology that creates a surplus of labor that the economy might not actually be able to absorb.
And to help us navigate this, we're pulling heavily from a book called Rise of the Robots by Martin Ford.
Martin Ford is a fascinating guide for this topic. He isn't some academic economist sitting in an ivory tower looking at 50-year-old data.
Yeah.
He's a software entrepreneur right in Silicon Valley. He's in the trenches.
He literally sees the code being written.
Exactly. He understands the exponential speed of computing power. And his central thesis is a phrase that usually gets you laughed right out of an economics department. His thesis is simply, this time is different.
We hear that a lot, though. This time is different. And usually, history proves that statement wrong.
Right. It's the boy who cried wolf of economics.
Because skeptics will say, look, people panicked when the printing press came out. They thought it would destroy human memory. They panicked when the steam engine arrived.
They panicked about electricity.
Exactly. But every single time, technology destroyed old, dangerous jobs like the buggy whip maker and created entirely new, much better jobs like the car mechanic or the flight attendant.
That is the standard Luddite fallacy argument. The idea is that technology creates wealth, that wealth is spent, and that spending creates new demand for totally new types of labor.
And it's a cycle that has held true for 200 years.
It has.
So why does Martin Ford think this specific moment in history actually breaks that rule? Why is this time different?
That is the multi-trillion-dollar question. The argument Ford makes, and it is a very compelling one, is that previous technological revolutions were largely mechanical.
Okay.
They replaced muscle.
They replaced the ox. They replaced the bicep.
Exactly. The steam engine, the internal combustion engine, electricity, these were all systems that amplified or replaced physical power. But the information technology revolution is completely different because it is replacing the brain.
It's invading the cognitive realm.
Yes. And once you start replacing the brain, there is literally nowhere left for the human to retreat to.
Right, because when the tractor replaced the farmhand could just move to the factory.
And when the robot arm replaced the factory worker, the worker could move to the service sector. They could use their social skills and cognitive flexibility.
But if the machine can think and learn and interact...
Where does the human go?
Wow. And it's not just about the type of technology we're dealing with. It's about the sheer speed, isn't it?
It is the speed. We are going to talk about Moore's Law a bit later, but the rate at which these systems are improving is something our biological brains have a very, very hard time comprehending.
Because we think linearly.
Right. We think linearly, but the machines are improving exponentially.
So we are going to break this deep dive into a few logical sections to really get our heads around it. First, we are going to look at the blue-collar evolution, the hands and eyes.
The physical stuff.
Then we're going to look at the white-collar invasion, the brains. After that, we will look at the economic nightmare scenario, what Ford basically calls the feedback loop of doom.
Sounds fun.
And finally, we will talk about solutions. Is there a way out?
It's a solid roadmap for the future.
Let's start with the stuff we can actually see. The hardware. Section A, the blue-collar evolution. Now, when I say industrial robot, what immediately pops into your head?
Usually it's the automotive plant. You picture a car chassis moving down a line, and these big, heavy, totally blind orange arms are just spot welding and sending sparks everywhere.
Right, and those have been around since the 1970s.
Those are the old robots. They were incredibly expensive, they were dangerous, and they were dumb.
Dumb how?
They were blind. They were deaf. They were essentially just playing back a recording of coordinates. They move to point X, they weld. They move to point Y, they weld. If the car on the assembly line was an inch to the left, the robot wouldn't know.
It would just weld thin air.
Or worse, it would smash his giant arm into the metal and destroy the car entirely.
So they required a perfectly structured environment. You had to bolt everything down.
Exactly. The environment had to be adapted perfectly to the robot. But that is changing fast. Ford highlights a company called Industrial Perception. They built a robot that does something that sounds incredibly boring, but is actually a profound technological miracle.
Let me guess.
It moves boxes.
The box mover. Now, I can move a box. You can move a box. My 5-year-old nephew can move a box. Why is a robot moving a box a big deal?
Because of the bin picking problem. To a human, looking into a bin of random parts or boxes and grabbing one seems easy because we have millions of years of evolution coordinating our eyes and our hands.
Right.
But for a machine, a bin of jumbled parts is a chaotic nightmare.
It's just noise to them.
Exactly. Imagine a pallet where the boxes are different sizes. Some are crooked, some have labels, some don't. The lighting changes when a cloud passes over the skylight above.
Oh, wow.
To a standard computer, That is just unstructured chaos.
So how did industrial perception actually solve it?
This is where it gets really fun. They use technology derived directly from the video game industry, specifically the Xbox Kinect.
Wait, the Kinect? The thing you used to play those dance games in your living room?
The very same. That device was completely revolutionary because it was a cheap, effective 3D motion sensor. It projected a grid of infrared light to map the room.
Okay.
Industrial perception took that concept and gave it to the robot.
So the robot can see in 3D.
It looks at a chaotic stack of boxes, generates a full 3D map, figures out which box is on top, calculates the exact angle to slide its gripper in without knocking the other boxes over, and then moves it.
It deals with uncertainty.
Yes, it deals with uncertainty. That is the ultimate game changer. It doesn't need a structured environment anymore. It can work in the messiness of the real world.
And Ford mentions that while this robot might be a little slower than a human at first, the improvement curve is incredibly steep.
Engineers believe these machines will eventually move a box every single second. That is faster than any human could ever sustain. And remember the other factor here. The robot never gets tired.
It doesn't need a lunch break.
It doesn't hurt its back and file for workers' comp. It doesn't join a union. It works in the dark, so you save on electricity. It works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
So even if it's slower per minute, the output per wink is just untouchable.
Untouchable.
There is another robot in the book that really stood out to me because it feels, I don't know, distinct. It's called Baxter from Rethink Robotics.
Oh, Baxter's very important.
Most industrial robots look like scary machines. Baxter looks like a literal cartoon character. It has a screen for a face with animated eyes. It has 2 red arms. It genuinely looks harmless.
And that is entirely by design. Baxter represents a huge leap in accessibility and safety. Traditional industrial robots are dangerous. If you walk into the swing radius of a welding arm, it will kill you. You have to put them in steel cages.
Right.
Baxter is collaborative. It uses sonar and force sensors to know exactly when a human is near. If you accidentally bump into it, it stops instantly. It is totally safe to stand right next to.
But the part that blew my mind was how you train it. Because you don't need a team of software engineers writing code.
No coding required at all.
Yeah.
This is the real democratization of automation. You literally grab Baxter's wrist like you were teaching a child to swing a tennis racket, and you physically guide it through the motion.
Yeah, just show it.
You say, pick up this thing here, move it there. Baxter feels the motion, records it, and then repeats it forever.
That lowers the barrier to entry so much. A small mom-and-pop manufacturing shop could just buy a Baxter.
Exactly. It costs less than a year's wages for a typical American factory worker. And once you buy it, the hourly cost of operation is pennies, just a little electricity. It can do packing, light assembly, machine tending. It is aggressively eating the low-hanging fruit of manufacturing labor.
So we have boxes being moved, we have light assembly, but then Ford takes us out of the factory entirely and into the service sector. This is where I feel like most people think they are safe.
Oh, definitely.
People say, well, a robot can't make a gourmet burger. A robot can't understand customer service.
That is what we call the service sector illusion. We think those jobs are perfectly safe because they involve food or people, but enter momentum machines.
The startup sounds terrifying and amazing at the exact same time.
They looked at the fast food process, which, if you think about it, is basically just an assembly line for food, and said, we can automate this entirely. We aren't talking about a robot arm flipping a patty on a grill. We are talking about a fully integrated standalone device.
Paint the picture for us. What does this machine actually do?
It takes raw ingredients. It shapes the patty from ground meat, so it's actually fresher than a frozen puck. It grills it to the perfect char. It toasts the bun. It slices the tomatoes and onions fresh for every single burger. It applies the condiments. It bags it.
And it does this fast.
360 burgers an hour.
Wow.
That is 1 burger every 10 seconds. No human line cook anywhere can sustain that level of consistency or speed.
And the quote from the co-founder of Momentum Machines was pretty chilling. He didn't sugarcoat it at all.
No, he really didn't. Usually tech companies spin it and say, oh, we are helping workers be more productive. He said, our device isn't meant to make employees more efficient. It's meant to completely obviate them.
Obviate. To make unnecessary. To remove.
That is the stated goal. And think about the economic impact of that. The fast food industry employs millions of people. It's often the first job for teenagers or a crucial safety net for unskilled labor.
Right.
If you can replace the entire kitchen staff with one machine that takes up 24 square feet, the math is just undeniable for the franchise owner.
It completely changes the landscape of entry-level employment.
It does. And it's not just the cooking either. Look at Amazon. They bought a company called Kiva Systems. If you picture a traditional warehouse, you have people walking 10 to 15 miles a single day.
The pickers.
Right, the pickers. They walk down long aisles, find a bin, grab a book or a blender, and put it in a tote.
It's a lot of walking. It's a lot of wasted time.
Kiva flipped that logic totally on its head. They said, why is the human walking? Let's make the shelves walk.
It sounds like Harry Potter.
It really looks like it, too. The robots are these little orange hockey pucks. They slide under the shelving towers, lift the entire tower up, thousands of pounds, and literally drive the shelf to the human.
So the human just stands still in a packing station.
Right. The warehouse becomes this incredibly dynamic, dancing grid of shelves. The shelf arrives, a laser points to the specific item, the human grabs it, scans it, and the shelf drives away.
And that creates a massive efficiency boost.
2, 3, 4 times the productivity.
But there is a force multiplier here that Ford emphasizes, and I want to make sure we explain this clearly because it applies to everything we've talked about so far. Cloud robotics.
Yes. This is the concept that ties it all together. In the past, a robot needed a powerful computer on board to process everything. That makes a robot very expensive, very heavy, and it drains the battery incredibly fast.
It's like carrying a supercomputer around in your backpack.
Right. But now, with high-speed internet and 5G, the robot can just be a dumb mechanical shell with sensors. The brain can be up in the cloud.
So when the robot sees a coffee cup, it sends the picture to a server farm 1,000 miles away.
Yes. The supercomputer in the server farm analyzes the image, figures out it's a coffee cup, calculates the exact grip required, and sends the command back down to the robot's hand.
And the scary or amazing part is the collective learning.
The Borg effect.
Yes.
If one robot in a warehouse in Ohio encounters a weirdly shaped toy, let's say a stuffed giraffe, that is really hard to grab, and it figures out the solution after a few tries, that data is instantly uploaded to the central brain.
And then
Instantly. Literally at the speed of light, every other robot in the network all over the entire world knows exactly how to grab that giraffe.
human learning is so linear. If I learn how to do a card trick, I have to teach you, and then you have to practice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Machine learning is instantaneous and collective. They simply do not make the same mistake twice.
Okay, so that's the hands and eyes part of the equation. The
Yeah.
blue-collar jobs. I think a lot of you listening might be nodding along thinking, wow, tough break for the warehouse guys. Tough break for the burger flippers.
Sure.
But you might think, I went to college. I have a degree. I work in an office. I'm a knowledge worker. I'm safe.
And this is exactly where we enter Section B. The white-collar invasion. The cognitive threat.
Martin Ford argues that the safe degree is a total myth.
He does. And the reason is that we vastly misunderstand what our jobs actually are. We think we are being creative or strategic, but a lot of white-collar work is actually just routine information processing.
The sources mention big data as the driving force here. We hear that term all the time. But how does data threaten a supposedly creative job like writing?
Well, it starts with pattern recognition. Take writing news stories. There is a company called Narrative Science, which, by the way, sounds like a sci-fi villain corporation, doesn't it?
It really, really does.
They develop software that can take a stream of raw data, say the box scores from a baseball game, or a company's quarterly earnings report, and turn it into a genuinely compelling news article.
But how does it know the story? Is it just filling in blanks like the Yankees beat the Red Sox?
No, it is much, much more advanced than Mad Libs.
Yeah.
It analyzes the data to actually find the narrative arc.
The arc.
Yes, it sees that the score was close in the 7th inning, then a player hit a home run, and the momentum shifted. It writes actual sentences like, despite a heroic effort in the 7th inning by the pitcher. It uses adjectives. It fundamentally understands the flow of a story.
And people are reading this right now.
Millions of us probably have without even knowing it. Forbes uses it. Big sports networks use it for recaps. A study showed that readers often couldn't even tell the difference between a real sports writer's article and the algorithm's article.
That is wild.
In fact, sometimes they actually preferred the machine because it was more objective and concise.
So sports and finance reporting are absolutely on the chopping block. That's journalism. But surely something highly specialized, like medicine, is safe. Doctors go to school for a decade. They are the elite of the workforce.
Let's talk about IBM's Watson.
The Jeopardy robot.
The Jeopardy robot. Most people just remember Watson winning Jeopardy against Ken Jennings. And that was a huge moment because Jeopardy isn't just about facts. It's about wordplay, puns, humor, deep context. It requires a really nuanced understanding of human language.
But IBM didn't spend millions just to win a trivia game show.
No. They built Watson to solve complex problems by ingesting massive, massive amounts of unstructured data. And the first place they pointed it was healthcare.
Think about what a doctor actually does, like a diagnostician.
Right. They look at symptoms, they look at your patient history, and they compare that against their own knowledge of medical science to find a probability of what is wrong with you.
Right.
But here's the problem. No human doctor can read every single medical journal published every single day. There's just too much data. A human doctor might be relying on research they read in med school 15 years ago.
Watson doesn't have that limit.
Watson can ingest millions of pages of medical literature, patient records, and new clinical trials in seconds. It never forgets a single case. It never gets tired.
Wow.
In tests regarding lung cancer diagnosis, Watson has demonstrated accuracy rates that can exceed human specialists.
Because it can see correlations a human would just miss entirely.
Exactly. It might see that patients with this specific genetic marker and this specific symptom respond better to treatment B than treatment A. A human might miss that tiny pattern in all the noise. Watson sees it instantly.
Does this mean the doctor is fired tomorrow?
Not immediately. But the role heavily changes. The doctor becomes the interface, the person holding the patient's hand, delivering the news while the machine does all the heavy cognitive lifting.
And if the machine is doing the thinking, do we need to pay the doctor $300,000 a year? Or can a nurse practitioner with an iPad running Watson do the exact same job?
It commoditizes the expertise. And if you apply that exact same logic to law scanning thousands of legal precedents or to banking, you see the exact same pattern everywhere.
Speaking of banking, the deep dive touches on Wall Street. This feels like the tip of the spear for automation.
It really is. We used to have this Hollywood image of the trading floor. People in extensive suits shouting buy, sell, waving papers around, phones ringing off the hook.
The Wolf of Wall Street energy.
That is mostly entirely gone. If you go to a modern trading floor today, it's quiet. It's just rows of servers. The market is completely dominated by high-frequency trading, or HFT.
Describe that for us.
These are algorithms running on black boxes. They trade stocks in literal milliseconds. They aren't analyzing the fundamental value of a company. They aren't reading the annual report and say, I think this company has a good CEO.
They are basically playing a hyper-fast video game with the numbers.
They're analyzing the movement of the market itself. They look for micro patterns. They can spot a buy order coming in from a big pension fund and just jump in front of it to make a fraction of a penny millions of times a day. It is a machine ecology.
And because they operate at speeds humans can't even comprehend, you get things like the flash crash.
Right, May 2010. The market tanked nearly 1,000 points and then recovered in minutes.
Unbelievable.
Before a human trader could even spill their coffee, billions of dollars of value vanished and reappeared. It shows how completely detached the financial system has become from human oversight. The algorithms essentially just started fighting each other.
There is another connection Ford makes here that I found really insightful, and I hadn't connected the dots before. The link between offshoring and automation.
Oh, this is a critical point. Usually, we think of them as two totally different problems. My job went to India versus my job went to a robot.
Right. One is globalization, one is technology.
Ford says they are just two stops on the exact same train line. Think about it. To send a white-collar job to India, or the Philippines, let's say, processing insurance claims or handling IT support, what do you have to do first?
You have to organize it. You have to digitize.
You have to turn the job into pure data. You have to define the workflow strictly. You have to create the data connection. You have to make it manageable remotely.
So you are basically preparing the meal for the robot.
Exactly. Once a job is purely data, once it is successfully being done over a fiber optic cable by someone halfway around the world, you have essentially created a massive training set for an AI.
Oh, man.
The offshore workers are generating the exact data that will eventually train the algorithm to replace them.
So offshoring is just the cleaning of the data phase.
Often, yes. It's the prelude. First, you move the job to a cheaper human. Then, once the process is perfected and digitized, you move it to a piece of software which is effectively completely free.
That is so sobering to think about. So we have established that the technology is incredibly capable. It's coming for the hands, the boxes, the burgers. And it's coming for the brains, the news, the diagnosis, the stock trading.
Yep.
Now I want to move to Section C, the economic Goldilocks end. Because all of this tech doesn't exist in a vacuum. It exists in an economy.
And this is where the data gets truly alarming. Martin Ford points to a specific year where everything changed in the U.S. economy, 1973.
1973. What happened then?
Well, before 1973, in the post-World War II era, we had what economists call the Goldilocks period. It was the absolute era of the American dream.
White picket fences, one income supporting a whole family.
And mathematically, it worked beautifully because productivity and wages rose in lockstep.
Yeah.
If you look at a graph from that time, the two lines go up exactly together. If businesses made more money because they were more efficient, better tools, better processes, the workers naturally got paid more.
It was a deal. We make more, you get more.
And it created a perfect feedback loop. Workers had money, so they bought stuff, cars, houses, appliances. That spending meant businesses made more profit, so they hired more workers to make more stuff. Everyone won.
And then came the great decoupling.
After 1973, the lines on the graph totally diverge. It literally looks like an alligator mouth opening. Productivity kept shooting straight up. We got computers, the internet, better logistics, automation. We became incredibly efficient at making things. The line goes straight up.
Like the wage line.
It flatlined. For the average worker, adjusting for inflation, wages have barely budged in decades. In some sectors, they have actually dropped.
So the machines are making us vastly more productive. We are generating more wealth than ever before in human history, but the rewards are going where?
To the owners of the machines, to capital, not labor, to shareholders and executives. This leads to what Ford calls the 7 deadly trends. We were seeing declining labor force participation, people just giving up and dropping out of the economy entirely, especially prime-age men. We are seeing soaring inequality.
And we're seeing jobless recoveries. That's a term we hear on the news a lot now.
It is. A recession hits, the economy crashes, eventually it bounces back, GDP goes up, the stock market hits record highs, but the jobs simply don't come back.
Why? Why don't they come back?
Because companies use the recession as an excuse to clean house and automate. They say, we have to cut costs to survive this downturn. So they fire people and invest heavily in software and robots.
Oh.
Then, when the economy recovers and demand returns, they realize, hey, we actually don't need those workers anymore. We are way more profitable without them.
This brings us to the consumer problem. There is a story in the book, possibly a legend, but it makes the point perfectly about Henry Ford II and the union leader Walter Reuther.
It is a great story. It really crystallizes the economic threat. They are touring a newly automated car plant in Cleveland back in the early days of automation.
Just rows of giant machines.
Yeah. Henry Ford II points to the army of robots and says, somewhat smugly, Walter, how are we going to get these robots to pay union dues?
Implying that the union and the power of the worker is totally finished. Like, I don't need your people anymore.
And Reuther shoots back without missing a beat. Henry, how are you going to get them to buy your cars?
Boom. That is the fundamental crack in the entire logic.
That is the absolute crux of the crisis. Capitalism runs on consumption. 70% of the U.S. economy is consumer spending. Robots don't buy cars. They don't go on vacation. They don't buy iPhones. They don't eat at restaurants.
If you automate all the jobs, or if you drive wages down so low that people can only afford the bare necessities, who buys the products?
Exactly. The feedback loop completely breaks. You have a massive crisis of demand. You can make 1 million iPhones for $1 each, but if nobody has a job, nobody buys them.
It's the tragedy of the commons, but corporate style. For any individual company, say, a burger chain, it makes perfect sense to fire the workers and buy the burger robot. You save money, your stock goes up, you win.
But if everyone does it, if the car company does it, and the bank does it, and the hospital does it, the customer base just collapses.
The rational choice for the individual CEO is the irrational choice for the economy as a whole.
Precisely. It's a systemic failure that the market, on its own, cannot solve. The market is designed to optimize for efficiency, not for the long-term sustainability of its own customer base.
So if the market can't fix it and the technology clearly isn't going to stop, what can we actually do? That leads us to Section D's solutions. Usually when we talk about job loss, the standard answer from politicians on the left and the right is education.
Just go back to school, learn to code, upskill. The jobs of the future require higher education.
It sounds nice. It puts all the responsibility neatly on the individual.
But Ford calls this the education fallacy. And he uses a great visual to explain why. The skills pyramid.
Walk us through the pyramid.
Imagine a pyramid representing all the jobs in the economy. The wide bottom layer is routine, physical work laborers, drivers, food service. The middle layer is routine cognitive work clerks, entry-level accountants, paralegals, middle managers. The top, the tiny pointy tip, is high-level, creative, strategic, and management work.
Historically, how did this work?
Historically, when technology ate the jobs at the bottom, like agriculture, people moved up to the middle. They got a high school degree and went to work in factories or offices. The pyramid had plenty of room in the middle.
But now,
Now, the machines are eating the bottom and the middle at the exact same time. They're taking the driving jobs, and they are taking the spreadsheet jobs. So the education argument basically assumes we can just cram everyone to that tiny sliver